Hi, everybody. I'm Keisha Ramirez, New York North. So I'm upstate New York. I just passed my 7-8 test, so I'm a fairly young new judge since during COVID. And I got into judging after making many excuses not to do so. Because I always thought the judges were this elite group of people that didn't look like me, and I would never fit in. I would never be able to make it in. And I got into it because I had a lot of good mentors at the right time in my life between Colorado and New York to push me into it and just finally go ahead and take it. And since I coach on as well, it's always helpful to know, both sides of what we're doing when we're coaching and deductions and all that. And so I knew everything I could for the test, but I didn't trust myself to take it. But I did, and now I'm here.
Sure. My name is Kylie Fortunato, and I live in Minnesota. I went to the University of Minnesota and really got started in judging when my college career was cut short. So I didn't have the college career that I had envisioned or hoped for, and was in a bit of an identity crisis when gymnastics ended and I wasn't quite ready for it. So actually started judging my junior and senior years of college, just kind of as a way to stay involved in the sport on my own time and in my own way. So it's been great.
Hey, I'm Marcy Blitz. I am a nationally rated judge. I live in Pennsylvania, and I competed for the University of Pittsburgh in college. And I just knew that when I was finished with my career that I still wanted to stay involved in the sport in some capacity. And this was the way that worked best for me. I didn't want to be in the gym coaching every night, but I wanted to stay in and give something back to the sport. And so this has worked out really well for me.
Yeah, so I'm Jessica Lopez. I live in Denver, Colorado, and I am a brevet judge, first year. I competed for the University of Denver, and I was an elite gymnast for a long time. I think I got into judging because as an athlete, I was always involved with the process of building my routines. And so that kind of gave me a responsibility to know more about the code of points and the best way to structure my routines. And from there, I really liked it so much, and I knew I wanted to become a judge. I was very lucky with the community of Colorado. And yeah, that's pretty much why I got into judging.
Thank you.
Hello, Annie Alameda. I'm a national rated judge, and I was a gymnast at Illinois State a few years back, more than a few. But Marcy and Jessica, you kind of share what I did. So Marcy, I dabbled in some coaching. It was like, I don't know if this is the niche. And then as Jessica said, I was always really interested in knowing the values of my elements and like the technical side of gymnastics. So I kind of knew even junior, senior year that I probably was going to go the officiating route. So it's been great.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jasmine Swinigan. I'm a national rated judge. I currently live in Minnesota, but I did start judging in Illinois. And I was a gymnast at Iowa State, and I do see one of my teammates on here, so that's super fun. I started judging just because I was really into understanding the mechanics of the sport. And similarly to Kylie, my collegiate career was cut a little bit short. And so I just really wanted to stay involved and kind of give back in that way. I was that kid when I was 11 years old where I was always asking, well, why did I get that score? Well, why do I need to work on these skills? Well, why? So my coach at one point was just like, here's the code, go read it. And I've always really loved understanding the technical aspect and using that as a way to, continue to build one's career.
We want to let you know how you get started, and the place you get started is right here. We're going to let you know what NAWGJ is. That's our national organization. We'll tell you about that. We're going to talk about the different ratings of the judges. You heard each of the panel members say that they had ratings ranging from 7-8 through international elite. We'll tell you about those. What do you have to do to become a judge? What are those requirements? What do you need to study? How do you test? How do you get assigned to meets once you get your rating? How much will you get paid? What does basic shorthand look like? And I'm going to let you know about some clinic opportunities if you'd like to join in and no cost, and see what judging is about. So the National Association of Women's Gymnastics Judges is the name of our professional organization for judges. You'll often hear us say NAWGJ, and that's NAWGJ. Our primary mission is education and professional development for judges, as well as advocacy for the sport of gymnastics. We have a lot of educational benefits for our judges, constantly having clinics. We have resources up on the website. We'll look at those in just a moment. We have insurance coverage for our judges. We have professional liability insurance. We also serve as a sounding board for professional concerns about judging in general or about the sport. So I'm going to stop right there and ask the panelists your impressions about becoming a judge before and after you started judging.
I took my first judging test the year that I graduated college. So I was young, but I knew that this was something I wanted to get into. And I knew that the organization, I learned pretty quickly as a whole, had a pretty wide generational gap. But it was amazing how quickly we were able to bridge that gap. And some of my best friends are women that I've judged with since I started judging. And it's just been an amazing experience to watch that. But, you know, I try not to get intimidated, I guess, by, you know, to Keisha's point, you know, if somebody doesn't look like you or isn't in your demographic, you know, you can really make some amazing connections.
I think I would echo that. I mean, I think all of us growing up in gymnasts, you probably knew a couple of the judges in your state, and you could probably name them and say, so-and-so judged me every meet for my entire career. And so-and-so might have judged me a few years longer than she or he should have in my career. So I think that was a little bit intimidating. So, you know, when I first took my judging test, I was 20. And I can honestly say, even in my state, I'm still one of the youngest judges in the state of Minnesota. And I've been judging for 14 seasons, like 12 or 14 seasons now. But I think it's also, there's some really, really great mentorship in all of our states. That generational gap shouldn't be an intimidation, but you should really look at it more as an opportunity for mentorship and growth. And then I think one thing that I found after I took my test is that being a former college athlete honestly gave me a little bit of credibility with coaches and judges that some of my fellow judges who maybe weren't college athletes didn't have. So that was a really, really great benefit from coming out of college and having that kind of implied credibility from that.
So we have two entry ratings. One is the 4-5 compulsory, and one is this level 7-8 optional. So most of you may have done compulsory gymnastics when you first started gymnastics. And so there is one rating that you need in order to judge the compulsories. And then that's an entry level, but the other level is a very beginning level optional. We'll talk about each of these more in a moment. Then you have a level advanced levels, and there's level 9, 10, national, a USA brevet, and an international brevet. So what do you need to do? Well, you need to take a test, and you can start with the level 4-5 test and one optional test. Different ratings make you eligible to judge different levels of gymnastics. So this is probably obvious to you, but if you have a level 4-5 rating, you are eligible to judge all of the compulsory levels. And that means level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And maybe 1s and 2s weren't around when you were competing. But 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you won't test on level 1, 2, and 3, but once you get your level 4-5 rating, you're eligible to judge level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If you get the level 8 rating, you're eligible to judge level 6, 7, and 8, as well as the Excel program. That was, for some of you, that program probably was just beginning when you were a gymnast in the age group program. And then for level 9, you're eligible to judge basically everything except level 10 and college. You need a level 10 rating in order to judge collegiate gymnastics and also to judge level 10. So it follows pretty sequentially. The thing that's kind of hidden there is that you will actually be eligible to judge some levels that you don't test for because there are no tests for level 1, 2, and 3 or level 6. Now, there's a special exception for college gymnasts. If you were a gymnast who competed as a regional or national competitor as a senior level 10, or if you were a college gymnast who competed at regional and nationals, any division, as a collegiate gymnast, you don't have to start at level 7, 8 testing. You could start at level 9. Again, there's pros and cons to doing that. We'll talk about that in a moment. If you meet those qualifications, you can begin testing at levels 4, 5, and or level 9. And again, we would encourage you to be sure and get that compulsory rating because that will get you meet assignments. If you are a former senior elite athlete, they can begin testing at level 10 if they had participated in a national elite classic or above competition. And same thing, there you would encourage you to test level 4, 5. You could enter at level 10 as well. In order to find out if you are eligible, there's a form on the USA Gymnastics site. The QR code is there if you want to go directly to that website. You just complete that form. It's reviewed. It does need to be signed either by your college coach, if that's the basis on which you're applying, or if you were applying as a senior level 10 athlete who competed at regionals or nationals, then you can get that signed by one of your USAG representatives. What level did you start? Keisha, we know you started at, did you do 4, 5 first?
I did do 4, 5,
Okay.
yes. And if you live in a region that does split seasons, that's a really good way to get started because you can, for example, Region 8 does compulsory seasons in the winter and then optional seasons in the spring. So you're able to get more experience and more meets if you're nervous about the optional side, if you're not worried about your shorthand or you're not quite sure about the requirements for optionals. Anything gets confusing. Compulsory is very repetitive, so it's a lot easier to get practice on the shorthand and understanding the ranges and things like that if you're lucky enough to be in one of those regions.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to add that I started out, I think it was actually 5, 6, not before it was 4, 5, right? So I did my 5, 6, and then I honestly can't remember exactly second year, but I know my third year I did 10, and I did the special form. And I remember my regional judging director helped me with that. And so it was my third year, I was a level 10, but I remember a lot of my mentors saying, it doesn't mean we're just going to throw you out to the wolves. You're going to have a lot of support. And honestly, even now we have so much gymnastics in the St. Louis area. Majority of what I do is these 2, 3s, and 4s. But they were like, you're going to get paid, whether you're judging the babies or at level 10 state bar, those pay rates are the same. And so that's been great for me just for extra income. And then to your point, Keisha, about the learning, I felt very removed from compulsory gymnastics. I'd done optional since I was like in 5th grade. And so I remember going into a meet and I was like, kids get like 9 6s. I was like, that's a thing. Like we won state with like an 8 9 5. Like it just, the sport's changed as it's evolved. And so it was really great. I would also say, we try to avoid single panel early on. I think even now I still would prefer not to be single panel. But I think that was really good to learn that it was do lots of compulsories, learn your shorthand, and get really comfortable. And then, you slowly start getting paired up with great mentors at higher levels. And it's not as intimidating. I think I was scared, but I learned very quickly that they made you feel very at ease and, to get through the process. So it's been a good experience for me.
I was the same. I started at 5, 6. I had been planning to take my 5, 6, and 9 tests actually that fall, but back this is no longer a rule, but there was a rule at the time that you had to have practice judge so many meets to go ahead and jump ahead, and I didn't have that opportunity because I had just finished my collegiate career. So I did 5, 6 for one season, and then I jumped into 9 the following year. And I remember actually my very first meet was my very first session that I ever judged was like level 3s, the little babies that do the flat backs on vault onto a mat stack. And I remember my first experience and the, little cutie went and did her vault. And then my head judge saluted and I'm like, oh, the same kid's going again. I forgot they get 2 vaults because I had just come out of college. So we do a lot of them, kind of regardless of what your rating is, you're going to see a lot of those little guys. But it keeps it fun and I love all the different levels for different reasons.
Yeah, I did similarly to Marcy. I started as a 4-5 judge, and then the following year took my 9 tests, and then the year after that did 10. And year 3, I actually was thrust into college meets. So that was like they let me be really gradual at the beginning, and then they're like, okay, here you go. We need people. We'll figure it out. I will say, still the majority of what I do is the compulsories and a lot of Excel. When I was in Illinois, they have a lot of AAU gymnastics. And so I actually didn't have trouble getting meets that first year, even though I only had my 4-5 rating, because there's so much AAU and compulsory and, bronze and silver Excel to go around. So I didn't have any issues actually getting opportunities. And then I will say that a lot of states, as you take your progressive tests, the assigners are doing a really good job of working towards at least putting you on a meet at that new level. And so like 2 weeks after I passed my level 10 test, I was sitting, with a judge who'd been judging level 10 bars for 25, 30 years. And that was my first time judging level 10 bars. And so yeah, it's been a really good experience. And like Marcy said, I like all levels for different reasons.
I had a different experience. I started with level 10, and I remember that I tested in December. So I jumped straight to the optional season. And I do remember my first 3 meets or 2, I was very stressed out. Like the pace of the meet was like really fast, and I was not expecting that. And yeah, my shorthand wasn't very good at the time. And I remember on bars, it was just like the routine goes so fast. And it was quite a shock to the system for the first 2 meets. But then after that, like everything went smoothly. But I will say start with the compulsory season, even if you test, a higher level, just because it will give you a better idea and understanding of the dynamics of judging. And then you can start learning the basics of shorthand and, kind of getting in the groove and understanding how to balance also your weekends.
Yeah, I'll go last. So I also started, I did my 4-5 and my 9 in the same season. And for me, I did it because I was in college, and I said, well, if I pass my 9, I can make more money. So that was a big reason. And then I did 9, I held that for a year. I did 10, held that for a year. And then I said, okay, I'll start doing D3. I did that for a year, and then I did D1. So for me, it was kind of like I added one new thing each year. And even when I jumped into college, one of the nice things about our college assigning systems is you can rank your events. So even that whole first year in college, when I said, all right, I'm ready to do it, I'm going to try, but don't put me on bars. And our college assigner said, great. Okay, we're not going to put you on bars next year. And then the next year she said, no, you're doing bars. And everything was fine. But I can speak, I actually do the assigning for Minnesota for our winter season. And again, we're a split season state, so we do have the luxury of being able to use a lot of those 4-5 judges, particularly in our fall season. But we also find opportunities to use them in our winter season too. There's a lot of gymnastics even in our smaller state. And I grew up in Oklahoma where there was no split season. So, I mean, you might be competing in a meet where level 3 through 10 was in the same day. Yeah. So taking that 4-5 test and then having the opportunity to take a higher level optional test, even if you don't judge it a lot, even if there's one kid in that session, then you're eligible to judge it and you get paid to judge it. I also found that for me, testing right to 9 was a bit more comfortable because that's what I was more familiar with. When I was coming out of college, if you had said, hey, go judge a level 7 meet, I was like, wait, what? There's no bonus? Like, what do you mean? They're not doing skills like I'm familiar with that I've been doing for the past 5 or 6 years. So testing right to that 9-10 level was actually easier for me at the time because those were the rules that I already knew. And those were the rules that I was most familiar with and the gymnastics that I was most familiar with.
What do you study? And this is pretty easy. Most of you probably know there's a compulsory book that you can buy. They have it now in a print version and also on Google Books. And it's available on the USAG website. If you're interested, you can do the QR code there and get to it, or you can look it up on the USAG site. The mini size book is $50. And the full-size book is $75. Many people prefer to use the Google Books and download it as a PDF and put it on their iPad or some other device. The same thing with the optional. There's a code of points, which you're probably all familiar with. That is also available now on Google Books. Used to be in iBooks, but they've switched over to Google. And you can purchase that mini code for $50 or the large version of that for $75. How do you get ready for tests? Well, you study what's in the books, but in addition to that, our website, this is a picture of our website, has a section on education. And if you go to the education section, jump down to judging aids, and then jump over to test prep, you're going to find all kinds of resources to help you get ready for the test, compulsory, optional, all level. Well, first of all, there's a written test for every level. There's a film test, not for the compulsory, but for all the other levels. There's a film test. The written tests are now all online in open book. That is absolutely wonderful. So y'all are probably all good test takers because of all of your collegiate experience. So you shouldn't have troubles with that if you just get organized and steady, and can you have an hour to do the compulsory written test, and I think you may have an hour and a half to do the optionals. I'm not sure. The film tests are offered by test administrators in each state, and you can get a list of where the tests are going to be offered for the film test by going to the USAG website. Again, there's a master list of all the tests that are going to be open. When you go to the USAG website, this is the page that you will see. The first yellow arrow is how you register for the online compulsory 4-5 test. If you can get that book and study and go and do a few exercises and some of the sample tests on our website, you could take that test anytime you want. Then you'd have a 4 or 5 rating. So it's that sounds pretty easy. There's more to it in terms of studying, but I think you'll find it's a very straightforward test and one that you should be able to master without any problem. The level 7, 8, and 9 exams are going to be offered, as I said, at various times in each state by what they call test administrators. A test administrator is just a judge who has agreed to be a test administrator. So that's all that they are. And you can just click on that website and they'll pull up the master list. To pass the test, you're all meet the minimum age requirements, I assume, and so that's not an issue. You need it to get 70% on the level 4-5 test. There's 50 questions. They're multiple choice. So 70% is really not too high of a bar for you. The more important thing is that you learn to apply that when you're judging. The level 7, 8 also needs 70% on the written test and 70 on the practical. Level 9, you'll see 76 and 75%, and level 10, 80% on both exams. If you start at level 7, 8, you do need to judge at level 7, 8 for 1 year before you take the level 9 test. And likewise, if you start at level 9, you need to judge for 1 year at level 9 before you can take the level 10. That might be another reason for you to consider going in at the level 9 or 10 level if you're eligible, because you will move up faster. Any advice, panelists, for testing?
For me, now that the written tests are online, I think it's just really important to be organized before you take the test, so that if you do, the tests are timed. So if you do need to look something up, you're not going to waste a lot of time trying to find where it is. So for instance, if you're taking a level 9 test, have the compositional chart handy that you'll see when you start studying, and have maybe some cheat sheets if that's what you use to judge with, but just being organized, I think, is really important for the written tests.
I'll keep it short and sweet. Take Robin's practice tests. I would have been lost without them.
If you can pass that, you can pass anything.
Yes.
I would just say too, don't let the lack of never having judged before intimidate you into not taking a video test. Coming out of college, I think most of us knew, what's a skill is a C or a D or an E. And so I'm pretty sure I took my first written test and I didn't write any shorthand down. I just wrote, C, D, A, B. And that got me through the test because, I knew enough. And then I became a better and better judge, learning my shorthand, getting into it more. But don't feel like you have to have all the answers or know exactly how to judge, or if you miss a skill that you're going to fail the video test. Because if you're coming out of a collegiate athletics experience, I mean, frankly, you can watch a routine and be like, oh, that was a really good routine. That should probably be in the 9s. That was maybe, you know, like an 8 routine, or, oh, we've got some work to do here. You already have that technical eye. So that would just be my advice.
It's good advice.
Yeah, Kylie, that is good advice. I was going to say it's knowing exactly what's on the test. So if you're going to take the 4-5, you don't need to know everything in the kitchen sink. Know what's on the test to pass the test. That's not a direct indicator of how you're going to be as a judge, right? It's kind of just like your gatekeeper to start this process of judging, right? Which takes a few years to evolve and understand the entire process. But know what you need to know and not overly stress about just passing the test. And then once you pass it, you're going to have a lot of people helping support you to actually getting where you're sitting in a seat judging.
I have to agree with everything that everyone just said, and I just want to add, practice those routines where there's like more mistakes or maybe missing some requirements or some like unusual routines that you may encounter during your judging career. So.
One thing I would say too is if you can get a mentor, because I know especially on the, you know, old JO level, especially compulsory, we were told by our coaches like, oh, your feet touch the mat, it counts as a fall, that's 0.5. And there were so many of those things that were in my head, like learning the up to deductions, because we had, you know, when you hear a coach, they're always telling you like the worst possible scenario. So it's been ingrained in you. So you got to break some of those cycles in your own head.
And Keisha reminded me something we didn't say. It used to be called the JO program, the Junior Olympic program, probably when you were competing. And in the last few years, it's changed. They no longer use the term Junior Olympics because basically it's now called the developmental program, and you will hear it called the DEV program. So if you hear that, that's what we're talking about. Some of us say age group because it just applies to everything that's not college. Basically, you would need to join USA Gymnastics as a professional member. They'll have you do a background check, a safety and a risk management course, a safe sport training, and complete a review of the USA Gymnastics safe sport policy. There may be other organizations offered in your locale. Jasmine mentioned that she judged AAU in Illinois. It's a big program in many states, and so depending on which state, find that out, because that will give you a lot of judging opportunities and a lot of judging experience. And the more experience you get, of course, the better. Some states have USAIGC, and some have a newer program called NGA, and there are others out there as well. One way of keeping up with it is on the USAG membership site. You'll have a profile, and all of your educational activities will go into that profile if they were offered by USA Gymnastics. But it's really nice because it helps keep you up to date. So you can see this one I pulled up on July 31st, and my membership was expiring on that day, so I was going in to update my membership. And you'll also see that my safe sport training, I needed to take that course again. So you'll have ways to help you keep track of what you need. And just so you know, I did renew my membership and I did get safe sport trained again. So I'm all good. You also need to join our organization, because our organization is the organization that does the assigning and issues contracts on behalf of meet directors in virtually all states. You'll want to practice judge at the levels you'll be judging, because we all know that's what's fair to athletes. You can also complete your CPE. We're not going to talk too much about that, but if you know in the professions, you generally have to do continuing professional education. After your first year, you will need to do that with us as well, but that is a requirement of USA Gymnastics. And we do a lot online now, and we have a lot of clinics locally and in our state. I should not say locally. There are a lot of clinics in your state, in your region, and then online. So you should be able to keep up with your CPE, and those should help you get better and better at being a good judge. So
Can I make a comment about the cost too? Because I do think that was one of the biggest things for me starting out, right? I was fresh out of college, or still in college, so I didn't have a lot of extra income. But you know, putting that cost out up front to take those tests and everything, by the time I got my first assignment, you know, you might make $200-300 in a day once you have that first assignment. So you quickly recoup that cost, which I think is a little bit of an unknown for people. Like, oh my gosh, I have to buy all these memberships, I have to pay all these money, you know, what am I going to do? But as soon as you start getting assigned, you know, I think judging gymnastics is the most wonderful part-time job where I get to pick my own schedule and somebody's going to pay me to do something all day that I love. So you do recoup those costs pretty quickly.
How do you get assigned to meets? You've been hearing the term assigner. And so, Marcy, that's got your name on it. Let's have you talk about how you get assigned to meets.
So most states have an online assigning system at this point. We in Pennsylvania use one called Gymnasts, which quite a few of the states are using at this point. And this is a screenshot of my homepage when I log into Gymnasts. But basically what it allows us to do is have each judge put their own availability in, their own obviously contact information, if there's any kind of affiliation that you have because either you coach or you have a daughter that does gymnastics. You put in all of your information, you put in the dates that you're available. To Kylie's point, you know, if you want to judge every weekend, that's great. But if you can only judge, you know, on Saturdays, or you can only judge one weekend a month, that's okay too. You go ahead and enter what you're able to do. And then only our assigners can see that. And then, you know, if everything can match up, you know, depending on where a meet is and what your rating is and your availability, you'll be able to get assigned through the system. When an assignment goes out, you get a automatically generated email from the system. And then you can also go ahead and generate your contracts to the system as well. So it's nice that everything's kind of right there and all in one place.
Now to the part about pay. So we've been talking about how much it costs. And we'll just tell you right up front. We did a calculation of what it cost for the first year to become a 4-5 judge. And if you took the 4-5 test, bought the book, paid for your memberships to the 2 organizations, and then also took the other kinds of requirements that are required by USAG, it's going to cost about $300. The good news is, depending on where you live and the kinds of meets, as was said, you can make that back in perhaps a weekend. If you live in a small state and the meets are smaller, it may take you a couple of meets to earn that back, but you can earn that back. If you start at a level 4-5, that rate is $18 per hour. That if you have a 6, 7, 8 rating, which is really a 7, 8 rating, if you have that, it's $20 an hour. If you have both of those, it's $22 an hour. So you can see right away, there's definitely a benefit for you to have at least your compulsory and your optional rating, because financially you can get there, but you'll start learning and moving through the process. But when you get your level 9, it's $26 an hour, $30 an hour at level 10, $33 for national, and $36 for brevet. So there's a chart that's in the rules and policies. It's just nice, and just to show you, if you're going to be judging, say, 9.5 hour a day meets, and again, depending on the kind of meet and the state you live in, you might be judging as many as 12 or 13 hours and get paid 12 to 13 hours or 14 hours a day, because some of them are really big meets. But not all states are like that. So you might only have a 3-hour meet, but you can see that you're going to get paid a couple $100, most likely, if it's an all-day meet. And most meets now are 2 days, and in the optional season, many of them are 3, and a few of them are even 4-day meets. I imagine you all participated in meets that were like that. In addition to getting paid your hourly fee, you will get your travel expenses reimbursed. You'll get paid whatever the standard IRS rate is. It's currently 62.5 cents per mile. If you need overnight accommodations, the hotel will be provided by the meet director, and generally all of the judges stay at the same hotel. Most of the meals are provided by the meet director, but for those that you need to purchase as you are driving to the meet or on your way home from a meet, our per diem is $20 a meal. Panelists, any financial thoughts on the financial aspects of judging?
Don't let the price tag deter you. There's a lot of states that, like we were saying, not only help with the cost of test taking, but like in New York State, if you take the test and then now the NAWGJ membership is discounted for first-year judges, for us, if you volunteer for our New York State Judges Cup, the state will buy your code of points or will buy your compulsory book, and you get to choose how you want to use those volunteer hours towards, and the state will totally provide and reimburse for that.
One point to make on that, though, is that you will want to start keeping track of your expenses and your income, because you can use the expenses as a deduction on your taxes. So just know that much about it, and then when you have a chance and come to one of our sessions and learn more about running your own little business there. Okay, so yes, we do have some codes of professional conduct, both NAWGJ does and our USAG rules and policies do. That's nice. Most of you are familiar with that because you've been really living lives that require you to act in a professional and mature manner. So shouldn't have any trouble. There's some that are a little nuanced in terms of being an official, just basically so that we don't get ourselves into a conflict of interest. That's something that can come after you get your testing done and get your ratings. But one of our professional codes of conduct is basically that you do wear the official NAWGJ uniform for certain meets. There are exceptions. You mostly are familiar with seeing judges wearing a navy blue suit, either skirt and pants and a jacket. Your first year, you do not have to purchase the uniform. You can just wear your dark pants, dark skirt, and a white shirt or blouse and a sweater or a jacket, hopefully. But after the first year, you do need to wear the NAWGJ uniform. The good news is, and this is probably something you may not have seen as much, because we do still require that the judges wear official uniform for collegiate meets. However, for our age group programs, we do have many options now. So you'll see the official uniform, which I think she looks so cute. I love that picture on the right-hand side of your screen. But we also have dresses. Some people prefer dresses, and those do come with the NAWGJ emblem on them. But in addition, we are now, for state meets and below, we can wear sweaters. And we like that because they're comfortable, number one, but also because many of the gyms are very cold, either because it's winter in some states and it's cold, or in our state, I live in Florida, so it's cold here because we have very cold air conditioning in most of our arenas. So as you probably know, because you've competed in them. So we really do enjoy the variety of sweaters that we have, and we even have a fleece jacket now that's over on the far right, if you prefer a fleece jacket. One of the things that I think some of us have found really rewarding about being in judging is that it has helped us to either learn or use leadership skills. And Marcy, I know you were going to talk a little bit about that.
I had only been judging a year or two when my state judging director encouraged me to join our state NAWGJ board and get more involved from the judging side of things and the back end of things. So I was on our state board for a number of years. I was our webmaster for a while. I was our newsletter editor. I kind of did a variety of things over the years, and then eventually became the state judging director. So I'm currently the state judging director for Pennsylvania and Delaware. We're kind of considered one state for NAWGJ purposes. But yeah, you start to learn leadership skills that you can then use and apply to your careers as well. From running events and learning how to work with budgets and financial statements, and learning how to manage people and work with a variety of different personalities. And so I've just learned a variety of things over the years that have been interesting to me, but then I've also been able to help translate into my career and take some of those things that I've learned and use them there as well. So that's kind of my story.
Yeah, I was going to add. So I served on our board in Missouri, and there was also a co-state judging director, not in this current term, but the previous term, and definitely learned a lot. It was wonderful to go to the SJD meetings and to find out what other states were doing to bring back to our states. And I'll also add, it was very eye-opening to listen to the coaches and their organization within our state and start talking with them and realizing that we all have very similar goals about what we want for our gymnasts in our states and just our sport in general. And so I think it was great to listen to their needs and hear different perspectives and kind of work on things together. So that was great. I enjoyed that.
I'd say also just the act of judging has helped me a lot in my professional career, being able to analyze a lot of information in a short amount of time, which is what we do all day long, and then making a decision about it, right? Also being comfortable, like when you're judging and something weird happens and you need to reference your book, getting comfortable saying, I don't know, I'm going to look it up. That has helped me a lot in my professional career as well. In addition to that, you know, there are a lot of mentorship and leadership opportunities that folks have been talking about here. I'm actually the director of judging for the organization called Brown Girls Do Gymnastics, which I obviously would not have been able to get connected to without judging. And so I've been able to work with an outside organization who's providing community to brown and black athletes, and, you know, just help them be part of the community, learn about the judging side of things. I'm working on recruiting judges through that venue as well, and doing a lot of education with parents as well. So there's a lot of just additional leadership opportunities that judging has brought me to that I wouldn't have had the opportunity for otherwise.
All right, so we're going to finish up here with the formal presentation just by looking a little bit at this thing called shorthand. And these are some of the basic shorthand symbols. And we certainly aren't going to go through a course right now, but you'll see Marcy's put a note down here that the symbols generally mirror the shape of the skill. And these are good examples. So you'll see that's a tuck position, and that looks like a pike, and that's a stretched position. That's a straddle. These are split positions in different directions. That's a woof. It doesn't really look like a woof, but it does look like a W, so that helps you know that. And there's a cat leap. And then this is one that's put on a ring in position. So those are kinds of things that it's really not so foreign once you know that they actually are mimicking the skill itself. And I thought
I'll comment on that too, because I think even that was a myth for me before I started judging. I remember I would go to like my state meet and come home and watch the video with my parents, and my dad would say, "The judge wrote something down. What did you do wrong?" I was like, "What do you mean, Dad? I don't know what you're talking about." Not even realizing that the judge was writing down a symbol necessarily for every skill I did, whether I did it perfectly or with a deduction.
It's fun. I think this is a part of the challenge. We like to learn new things. And so we're always trying to learn and perfect our shorthand so that we can actually tell a coach what happened here. What we're going to do is show you a bar routine, and it's going to have superimposed on it the shorthand so that you can follow along and see what we're writing while the athlete is going. It's up on the top, the shorthand is. So you know your routines, and you may even know the skills for those routines, or the shorthand skills for those. Our trick is to get all that down and write down what the execution deductions were. So I did just show you a sample of a score sheet, which you all probably have seen before, in which we're writing down not only the symbol for the skill that the athlete performed, but also writing down the deductions. So this one, she had a 0.05 because her head was out and she wasn't fully extended in her kip. So the coaches, of course, really appreciate it if we can get this much detail written down. But I also wanted you to notice that on this one, it was kind of purely coincidental. I pulled it out of a clinic we did yesterday, and we had written nice feet. She had, so we're not always writing negative things and taking deductions. We really appreciate it when an athlete fully extends, when she's got great footwork, and when she shows artistry or other things. And we'll write little notes to ourselves just to remember that particular routine. That's what you aim for. That won't happen immediately. It takes a while, particularly on bars. Beam is the easiest routine event to do shorthand on. It's because you have more time. Because many of you are eligible to come in at level 9 or level 10, we are having some online clinics right now to help our judges who are preparing for testing. And what we do is we go through each routine and we notate, they score it. Then we show them the script like I just showed you. We talk about what the values of each skill were, what kind of bonus combination they got, why we took the execution we took, and what composition deductions that were taken as well. This would give you a little opportunity, and we'll be doing those, as you can see, between August and next November.
I just want to say that judging is actually a lot of fun too. I think it's a really, we all love gymnastics, and especially coming out as an athlete, you've had great experiences. You've had really kind of like a lot of people that have influenced your life in a lot of ways in terms of coaches and teammates. And like we kind of thrive in that community, especially being collegiate gymnasts, and now you're moving on to the next phase of life. And I found kind of judging right away that it was way more fun than I kind of expected. Like I kind of did it more to be a coach, like a good coach, and to know the rules. But when I would go to the meets and I would sit next to this, somebody that I could really relate to, like I would build relationships with them, and I would have a lot of fun getting to know them and learning about them. And then, I would have a lot of fun watching great gymnastics or learning about the community of gymnastics, just by being at the meet, knowing this club and this coach. And so the relationship part of judging was a lot of fun and really surprising to me. I just didn't know, kind of coming from the athlete perspective, that existed. And then the actual like thrill of improving as a judge technically was really rewarding. So that's kind of, I mean, at least when I'm working with my own athletes, because I'm a college coach, I want them to have the opportunity to stay connected to the sport in such a fun way, because we all don't want to coach, and judging kind of lets you have a lot of flexibility and opportunity as life goes on. So that's what I wanted to say.
And to add to that, if you do end up moving, if you're not sure, where you're going to end up, you can do this anywhere. So it's not like, you move from one area and it's like, shoot, I really enjoyed that, or I wish I could have stuck with it. You can. And that's nice and it gives you, if you do end up moving somewhere, it gives you an immediate connection to somebody and something wherever you end up.
One thing we did not address, and I had said we would, was that how you manage all of this. They've got all kinds of things ahead of them. They're maybe going to graduate school, they're maybe going to a first job, they're maybe looking for jobs, they may be involved in relationships, they may be thinking about families, certainly career development. And now here's this judging thing. And I know you all went through that. And so any tips or advice or observations or anything in terms of managing that?
I'll start. I think that's one of the real blessings about being a judge is the flexibility that comes with it. Even in the 12 years that I started in college, and I didn't have Friday classes for my last 2 years, and I had my weekends free, and I judged a ton. And then I got a full-time job, and I went, oh, hang on a second. Okay, now I have to work 40 hours a week and then go judge 12-hour weekends, and I took a step back. And then I made the decision to quit working at my full-time job and become a stay-at-home mom. So now for me, judging is my job. It's kind of what keeps me sanity. It keeps me in the workforce. It keeps that, gap on my resume away as I stay home with my kids and gets me out of the house. And we actually manage a 2-judge family. My husband is an international brevet men's judge. So, I mean, we know way too much about gymnastics, but it's just such a great opportunity that gives you the flexibility to kind of step in and step out, no matter where you're at that point in your life. For me, judging, the income that it provides us allows us to go out of state to visit my family. It allows us to go on vacation. It gives my kids the opportunities to do gymnastics and soccer and whatever, sports that they want to do without feeling a financial pressure there. So it's just a really, really wonderful thing for our family, and something that we prioritize because it gives us a lot of freedom, both financially, and we really enjoy it.
Yeah, I think for me, I work full time, and I have another part-time job at a community college teaching online, and then also balancing the judging. And then I kind of stepped into some leadership roles. And so there was a lot going on. And I have a 6 and 8-year-old little girls who actually are gymnasts and also baseball players and other things. But I think for me, that's a great point that you all have mentioned about you can scale it up or scale it down and still stay in it. And I'll even add that for me, I teach full-time in a university. So I kind of have one of those jobs that's very flexible, but I'm kind of on the clock all the time, right? I got to kind of keep an eye on my emails if a student needs something. So really with judging, there's times where kids can go to grandma's or they're staying with my husband. And I take some of those breaks in between, go on a nice walk, kind of clear my head, and then I sit down and knock out some work that I have to get done. So it makes my weekdays a little lighter because I know I'm going to balance my weekends a little bit. So that's been helpful for me. I'll also add, so when my husband does not judge gymnastics, he is an official for baseball and football, but he laughs all the time about how he umpired baseball games out in 104-degree heat. They give him a voucher for a hot dog. He's lucky to get a bottle of water. And then like while this is going on, there's times where I'm like entering in my catered lunch that the meet director's asking from us. And you're like, no, really, I'll just eat whatever. And they're like, no, please order whatever you want. You're like, oh gosh. So I mean, we're treated very well in general. We're in air conditioning and we get to sit and we do have time to be active on our breaks. So we just really laugh at the differences and how officials are treated in gymnastics. We're just very well respected and taken care of. So that's my little tidbit on that.
That's good.
I'll add on to Annie. My brother and my dad are both soccer referees, and they get yelled at all the time by parents, and and I'm like, oh, we don't really talk to parents, and we get treated really well. And most of the meets, I mean, just take such good care of us. And yes, we're getting paid to be there, but we're having fun doing it at the same time. So.
We should say that we kind of expect that during the trajectory, if you started to judge now, that you might judge for a few years and then life might just take over because that's what happens, right? And then you may stop out for a while. But what we hope is that that won't mean that that's the end of your judging, that when the time is right, you'll come back in. We kind of take a 10-year view on this. If we get you hooked on it now, then even if you need to stop out for other reasons, career, family, whatever else, that when things ease up a little bit and you say, I need to do something else, or I have time to do something else, you'll come back to judging. So
yeah, I can give a personal example of that. I'm due with our third baby in 3 or 4 weeks, so I won't be judging this winter at all, really. And then, in a year where I would normally maybe travel for a couple college meets, I've made the decision that I'm only going to do a drivable Division III meet this year. But that's not going to deter me from next season, right? Maybe changing that up depending on what my family life looks like, or what the needs are of my home.
I will follow up and send emails out to you that has a state judging director list, and that list will have their email addresses and phone numbers. So whatever state you're living in or which one you might be moving to, you can contact that state judging director. Many of the states, not all, do have mentoring programs, and they might just assign you to another judge that you get to know really well, and you can feel free to ask any question you want and get any help that you want. And then also I'll send you a copy of the checklist that Robin talked about and a list of the clinics that are all on Zoom. And they're 2 hours long. You can just pop in for a half hour if you want, or you can stay for the whole 2 hours. So you can get an idea of what it is that we talk about and how we keep trying to perfect our own skills and get to be better and better judges. All right, well, thank you all so much. Don't hesitate. You have my email address. It was on the initial invitation that went out. So don't hesitate to send an email to me or to any of the panel members or anybody else who's here that you recognize to ask questions. We're more than eager to help you and to answer your questions. And we hope to see many of you in our, we call it True Navy, that's our color, our True Navy uniforms very soon. So thank you so very, very much for coming tonight.